Welcome to Massive Passive Cash Flow, the podcast that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth. Here's your host, Gary Wilson.
Welcome back to the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. I'm Gary Wilson, your host, and I'm glad to have you back. If you wouldn't mind, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the podcast. It's on 30 different channels, including the one you're listening to now, which is probably Apple. That's the big one, but you pick whatever one you want, and that's fine with me. And while you're out there, if you could go visit globalinvestoragent.com. If you're already actively investing in real estate, go there and pick an agent that's trained to work with you. These are not typical agents, guys. All right. We specifically train them to work with us, the investor. So they know how to identify, analyze, negotiate on and off market deals. They get all the tools, everything they need to go under the radar to find you these deals. And if you are an agent, knowing what's happening economically, we know we're poised for a correction. Can't tell you when. If I could, we'd all be billionaires, right? But the reality is you prepare for it. You don't. This is not a wait and see kind of environment. They just know that you learn from the past, get prepared now, learn how to be an investor agent yourself. On that website, you can click on the Learn More button and have a conversation. It's not a sales pitch. It's not a recruiting call. It's a conversation because we're looking for partners, right? We have a network that's in 37 states, and you can be part of it. All you got to do is have a conversation and see if it's a match. Now, in the meantime, we got a great guest today. Brandon Thomas was on board. And Brandon, first off, I want to thank you for doing this. I know, just like a lot of investors, you've got your hands full and you're busy. So I know we're blessed to have you on board, man. Thank you for doing that.
Oh, well, definitely. Thanks for having me, Gary. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to talk about investing. And I really look forward to this chat.
Yep. Well, I've been looking forward too. So let's go ahead and start at the beginning. If you wouldn't mind, how did you actually get into real estate investing? I know for me, I always loved houses and real estate, but I had a lucky break in college. My college roommate named Socrates, his dad was a big investor, and that's how I got my start. But a lot of us started out doing something else, like, computer programming or an auto mechanic and all kinds of things. But if you wouldn't mind, take us from where you were to how you got into this crazy business of investing in real estate.
Yeah, I will. I'll try and keep it as brief as possible because I can talk about this all day. I started a construction company right out of high school. So whenever I was 18, I got into construction. We had big government contracts, and I was making the most money I've ever made, especially as an 18-year-old. And eventually it just gets harder on your body. And I knew I better go back to school. And so that's what I did. I have a bachelor's and master's in accounting. And I grew up right outside Morgantown, West Virginia. And I started working at a property management company, a small apartment complex there. And I just started the wealth that the owner of the complex was making, on these monthly statements. They were insane. I was like, that's where I want to be. So I eventually pivoted, made the shift, got away from the property management, did a little bit of work in DC with the accounting firms. And I got licensed as an agent in 2019, right before COVID hit. And that was kind of my gateway into the real estate investing realm, because I wanted to be able to get the lingo, know the contracts from an agent perspective. So whenever I went and did the investing side, I knew what to look for, where to look for, good deals and all that jazz. And let's see, then COVID happened. And the market just went absolutely nuts for buyers. And if you weren't already investing, it was very difficult to be a newbie getting into investing during COVID. Yeah. But we can get into some of my deals later, but I'd say that's the bread and butter of how I really got into it, was just starting off as an agent, kind of building that brand of business and, making a name for myself, and then just jumping right into, full-time investing and now wholesaling and everything.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is I'm in the mountains, the Shenandoah Valley, the mountain range on either side where I grew up, did a lot of hiking. That's where I am right now. But I make the trip between here and Beaver County, Pennsylvania, and back at least once a month. So I actually go up through West Virginia, Western Maryland, and then eventually connect with 68 to 79. So I go right past WVU, at least twice a month. And of course, it's a big, great rivalry between WVU and Pitt. If you're a football fan,
Yep,
my son
absolutely.
actually almost went to WVU. So
That's
yep.
great.
But yeah, great state, great school. And the people who don't know this, um, WVU has this awesome engineering program where every year they allow the students to build a car. And they're very good at breaking down cars, analyzing them, and doing engineering studies. It's WVU that caught Volkswagen in that I forget the exact terminology, but they were fudging the exhaust part of the car to make the output seem cleaner than it really was. It wasn't by a wide margin, but it was WVU students that discovered that. You know, so kind of a neat story there. So that essentially, really put Volkswagen on its heels. So, in any case, different story for a different day. So let's I want to touch into the pandemic years because you're right. Nobody knew what to expect. It hit fast, it hit hard, but if you look at it back historically, it all makes sense. People are just hunkering down. Nobody was going to looking to move or sell, so the inventory dropped dramatically, and yet demand was still there. So whenever you have an imbalance between supply and demand, especially with demand being higher than supply, prices go up. And that's exactly what happened. And then when you print too much money, and I don't care what government it is, I don't care if it's Republican or Democrat, when you print too much money, you're creating inflation. When you put too much money out in the market, you're gonna have a rise in prices. So so therefore interest rates went up, our mortgages became more expensive to buy now more expensive properties.
Yeah.
you know, But you know what? Whenever there's adversity, there's opportunity. So tell us about maybe one of your first deals, and did you structure it creatively? How did you go about finding and doing and analyzing and doing that deal?
Yeah. So, before I get really started into, how I found my deal, I just got to say networking and just not burning any bridges will go so far in this industry.
Yeah,
And, that brings me into one of my partners who lives in Morgantown. He owns a few businesses there, and he's very successful already by himself. He did not need me at all. I just brought the real estate knowledge, to the partnership here. And our first property was a 5-unit, and it was kind of structured creatively, I guess more from my end than from a partnership. Is he paid for the down payment on that,
mhm.
and I'm just paying him back my portion through the cash flow over, whenever it's paid off. I think it's like 10 or 12 years. It's going to get paid off way before that. But,
Yeah,
that was kind of, my first step into a little bit of creativity. And then our second deal was a 10-unit. It was also in Morgantown. And both these properties were on the MLS. They both had multiple offers, and we didn't
yeah,
go over asking price. just the creativeness behind it is how we got them, especially with this 10-unit. So the 10-unit had multiple offers, and we kind of got creative with our lender at the time. It was a commercial loan.
okay,
And whenever we put the offer in, we asked if the seller would be interested in holding a second lien for the down payment.
okay.
So
hmm
that's what we did with the offer. We submitted an amortization schedule with it. We showed the potential interest they would be making over the 15-year span. And I mean, they're going to be making almost an extra 75 or 100,000 just from the interest payments on that 15-year at 4% interest, which was $100,000 loan that they got. So they're doubling their money, just lending it to us over this 15 years. And me and my partners were in it $600 a piece out of pocket for
Yeah,
this deal. And so we just acquired a 10-unit, that's going to be cash flowing close to $3,000 a month. And we only had to pay $600 out of pocket to acquire it.
yeah. So you had the first mortgage, and the second was what the seller's equity. That's what
Yep.
that was. Yeah.
Yep. So
So
we just
my
got
first property was similar to, we actually had a third mortgage. We had
really?
it was a VA mortgage. We assumed it, the first one. We refinanced his second. We took out a second to pay off his second, and then the remaining equity, we gave him a third note for the remainder. So we were just 23 years old, but we still cash flow. We rented out the other 2 bedrooms. our monthly outlay was like $50 a month. That was it.
Yeah.
You know, so the 10 unit is it near campus, or is it what's the clientele? What's the renter base there?
So we have about half professionals and
Mhm.
half Section 8, actually.
Okay.
It's a good mix, just because it's not completely renovated and would get the top dollar, market rents yet, just because we
Mhm.
really haven't pumped any money into it. And luckily with the Section 8 tenants, they're able to give us the market rents, and they don't really care if it's, beautiful inside. If it's safe and it's clean and the neighbors are respectful, that's a win for someone who is just who's down on their luck and just trying to get back on their feet.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's what's interesting is you've got a mix there, which is good. And for everybody listening, Section 8 refers to the tenant. It's the tenant that gets approved to be on a Section 8 program. And the HUD, Housing Urban Development, runs that program, and it's administered. So it's a federal program administered locally, usually at the county level, sometimes the city level if the city is big enough. But what they do is they adjust those rates periodically, and there's a great website you can get. It's a HUD website, and you can see what the prevailing rents are in all the areas of the country for 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms. And what's interesting is you'll actually get more rent per square foot on an apartment in a multifamily than you will in a single family home. And the logic is HUD believes, well, the tenants have to pay the utilities on a single family home. Therefore, they're going to lower the market rate on the rent. So we learned that years ago. We said, okay, we'll just focus on the little apartments, 2 bedroom apartments. That was our bread and butter for years. We never had a problem with rents, always collected because it was coming from the government.
Yep.
I mean, there's
Exactly.
pros and cons to everything, but at the end of the day, there's some great programs if you just look for investors, if you just look into them. So,
Mhm. Yeah,
yep.
I couldn't agree more. And the tenant pool has been kind of hit or miss. We've had our fair
Mhm.
share of terrible tenants that just destroy everything. But
Yeah.
one good thing about renting to this program is they are working with like a caseworker or someone in that program that will come in and inspects the unit beforehand. So they knew what it looked like before the tenants moved in. And then once the tenants move out and they see all the damage that the tenant's done, usually they'll meet us somewhere over halfway for sure, in
Right.
repair cost to get everything fixed. At least that's been my experience thus far.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good. And there used to be a HUD home buyer program too. So we would take some of our tenants that wanted to be homeowners, and we would flip a property to them. We would make some profit, maybe not as much as we normally would, but it was good for the community to do that, and it put them in an ownership position versus a tenant position, which gave them a lot of pride. And it wasn't for everybody; not everybody did it, but we made it available because we were obviously we were rewarded from it for it. And there's programs today. I know in California there's a program right now in the Bay Area. There's such a shortage of housing, and they need more rental housing. They're incentivizing the investors to build multi-unit, affordable housing and subsidized housing, and the government's guaranteeing the rent, 100%. I'm like, well, okay, that's a pretty good deal there. You might,
Yeah.
maybe you don't want to invest in California. I don't know, but I think you'll start to see more of those popping up around the country, knowing that we're some estimates as much as 7 million units short, housing units short right now. Some are saying it's 4 million, some are it's just between 4 and 7. That's a lot.
Oh yeah. I
And,
mean,
you know, yeah. So go ahead now. What are your plans going forward? You and your partner going to keep working together? Are you going to do some of your own deals or?
oh yeah, absolutely. We just me and another partner here that's more locally to me. I live 3 hours from Morgantown. I'm in like the Frederick, Maryland area. So
Yep.
he's more my boots on the ground in Morgantown. He handles all the in-person stuff, and then I handle all the collecting rents, the leases, talking to the
Mhm.
caseworkers with the Section 8 tenants, and kind of responding to tenants as well. So they're not bothering him. It's only me bothering him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have another partner here locally that we just finished our first flip together, and
Mhm.
I just got word that we're going to be under contract today on that. But yeah, I mean,
Nice.
going back to this current market, the county that we're in, I think to have a stable market, it's supposed to be around like 4,000 homes, on the market, and we're still like in the 600s, if that. And so we're
Right.
still very severely below a stable market here. And with the affordability and all that just kind of going out the window, it's going to be an interesting year, I think, still in real estate.
Yeah. Yeah. What's interesting is there's uncertainty because little more than a year ago, people were calling for a recession. For about a year. You know, last about this time last year to about the same time year before, people were certain there was going to be a recession was right around the corner. It still may be, but the thing is, whenever there's uncertainty, people tend to just hunker down. They're not like, you know what? Yeah, we want to move to Florida, but we really don't know what we're going to expect down there. We could get top dollar here in the north and like West Virginia, for example, but we're going to pay top dollar in Florida. That's the mindset of the consumer. Um, but investors are thinking, okay, wherever there's uncertainty, there's opportunity. There are people that still in a position to need to sell. Um, and if you look at the statistics right now, for example, now this goes back, it comes out every year. I think it was last fall. There was $30 billion in unpaid property taxes or property taxes in arrears in the country at the time. But the most interesting statistic was 93% of those owners had no mortgage. They owned the property free and clear. 93%. That's a lot of potential sellers. If they can't pay the property tax, how the taxing authorities are. They'll let you get away with 1 year, then 2 years, but the third year comes around, if you haven't paid, they're going to start proceedings. That's the general rule. No matter where I've been, that's sort of what and that's pretty lenient. You get 3 years of not paying property taxes. you know, um,
Yeah,
but
no, you're
if you,
totally right. And it's the same with
yeah,
it's the same with foreclosures too. Everyone was, predicting there's going to be this huge wave of, foreclosures coming to the market with, COVID and all that. And it never happened. And when you look at
nope,
the statistics, at least in my county, the foreclosures were still less than 1%. And we have all these investors just sitting there waiting for foreclosures. And I think they're still going to they're going to keep waiting.
yeah. Well, I'll tell you where one area of opportunity, and I'm not trying to scare people. I'm just being factual about it. You know, commercial mortgages are obviously everybody knows that they're variable rate. They're not fixed rate, and rates have gone up. And the commercial mortgages are typically the most common is a 5 year, basically a repricing. So you get to have whatever your rate is for 5 years. When the 5 years is up, they're going to adjust the rate based on what's happening in the marketplace. Well, clearly they're going to go up. So based on estimates, this is you can look this up statistically. It's available. These statistics are available. About 25% of those commercial mortgage holders are underwater. They're not going to be able to make it. I mean, if you look at what happened because of the pandemic, I mean, there's shopping malls around the country that are back on their feet, but there's a lot more that are not back on their feet. They're trying to be repurposed to pickleball courts, and some people are talking about converting them to senior living centers and things like that. It's not going to happen overnight. There was a lot of other in smaller uh, townships and boroughs around the country, buildings that were used for office space. They're no longer being used for office space. They're empty. There's churches that are being sold on the market because their congregations are just dwindling. There's old schools that are being sold. So, when you look at those factors, there's opportunities there, and it's going to be a boom time for creative investors. What can you do with a mall? What can you do with a church? What can you do with a school? And those that have the answer and provide something that serves the community are going to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
So now, well, I want to ask you, if you don't mind, I want to ask you about geography. So where you are is definitely a great area, and I've made that drive before too, from around Frederick, go up 270 to 68, and Back in the old days, people don't know this. 68 wasn't there. It was 40 and 48,
Oh
So,
yeah. Yeah. 40's
you
still
know,
there, but it's not as major as what it used to be.
no, no, it's a beautiful scenery. But if you're, Frederick is a great place to be. And on the way out to Morgantown, I mean, there's some other several small towns along the way. I mean, there's Hancock, Maryland. There's shoot, what's the town just beyond Hancock when you're right where the highway splits, you can go up to Breezewood. We'll be right back with the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast after I invite you to Monday Night Live. Every Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, I teach a class without fail for you on subjects ranging from flipping to buying rentals, managing rentals, wholesaling, commercial, creative purchasing techniques, analyzing properties, identifying properties, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of subjects. And if you are a licensee, if you have a real estate license, you should definitely tap in because there are a lot of investor agents also in the class. Many of them are on the global investor agent team. So you can learn from them as well as from me how to actually work with investors correctly and profitably. All right, we'll see you Monday night. The link is in the show notes. Go ahead and register. We'll get right to the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast.
Oh,
Not
like
Columbia.
Cumberland.
Not Cumberland. I'm sorry. That's it. Yeah, Cumberland Gap. How could I forget that? Great little small town. I mean, and what I like about them is big investor outfits generally ignore them, so it's less competitive, for folks like us. But in any case, having said that, have you thought about expanding out in different areas? And if you have, what areas do you have your sights on?
Yeah. So my brother-in-law lives in upstate New York, and we've been trying for about a year to get some sort of, remote location up there to possibly Airbnb, because there's the Finger Lakes, there's a ton of wineries, there's so much up there. So that's one area that we're working on. And then my other partner, he's interested in finding something in the Carolinas along the beach to do the same thing, Airbnb. And then in Morgantown, we're just keep trying to expand as much as possible, but the inventory is just so low, or the affordability is just not there. And even when we do try and pitch creative, it's just, even the numbers don't really make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you're purchasing, will you look at creative purchasing techniques first before you turn to conventional financing? Or are you really, the reason I'm asking this is I used to do creative purchasing techniques,
Mm-hmm.
and I discovered over time I can actually have a better cash flow if I just go the conventional route and get, instead of paying 12%, pay 6% on my mortgage. I'm like, what's so hard about figuring that out? But people sell this no money down stuff because people say I don't have money. So it's just a marketing thing. But the reality is if you do a good job with your investing, you'll have money, you'll have cash flow, you'll build up reserves, and the banks will like you. And believe me, it's a lot easier cash flowing when you put 20% down. I can hear everybody out screaming, you don't use your own money. Well, the thing is, I didn't start off with my own 20%, but I accumulated the 20% by doing a good job with my rental. So now the portfolio is funding the future purchases. I'm not really funding it. It's all coming from the portfolio. But I can tell you this, I start off with a great equity stake, and I start off with better cash flow because I'm not financing 100%, and I'm financing at a better interest rate, So
Yeah.
I know there's all kinds of exceptions and variables, but what have you found when it comes to the money? What's your favorite strategy?
Oh man, that's a good one. Cause there's 100 ways to do 100 different ways of real estate. Once you do one, you could go conventional in one route, but there's 100 ways to do it within that conventional route. I would say starting out, if you're trying to do, owner financing or do the no money out of your pocket, I think that's great. Especially for, newbies, rookies, just getting the ball rolling with their portfolio. But I completely agree with you. Once you get the ball rolling, you want more of that equity than to have no equity and, having multiple liens and payments, with what I'm doing with the 10 unit. If we would have just put the 20% down, we would have had the instant equity. Our cash flow would have been a lot better, and we would have been able to make the units hit more of a market standard. But with that extra lean, it hits into the cash flow and all of that. But hey, I mean, in 15 years, when that's gone, it's going to be even better. And once our commercial loan is gone in 20 years, it'll be even way better.
Yeah. Well, the cool thing is when you invest correctly, you build up a portfolio that has equity. It has, it's appreciating your equity. You're paying down your debt, and you have a greater spread. You can become your own bank. And people are startled when I tell them this, but one of my biggest moves was early on. I had 10 multifamily properties. It was a total of 30 units. Some were duplexes, some were fourplexes, some were triplexes. And I found a commercial lender who had his own private practice, and he used private money. And I said, I'd like to get a home equity line of credit on my invested properties just on the equity. But technically, it's a business loan. And everybody I talked about says you can't do that because all the commercial lenders want to be in the first position. They'll just have you refinance. And I said, well, I understand that, but this guy let me do what I wanted to do. And I only had to pay, I think at the time, interest rates were 8%, 8.5%. I only had to pay 10%. It wasn't like he raked me over the coals. I wasn't paying 15, which was a lot of other people were paying. But pulling out all that equity allowed me to go out and pay cash for a really big property. Then I fixed it up and raised all the rents, refinanced it with its own brand new first mortgage, paid back that commercial line of credit, right? Plus put cash in my pocket. And what do you think that commercial lender did for me when I paid back that line of credit and added another income producing asset to my portfolio? Well, he increased the line, and I was like, I'm set. Yeah. I became my own bank.
Do it again.
That's exactly what I did, man. And then the next thing I know, that was an 11 unit building. Next thing I know, we were buying a 78 unit building. We were in a whole different sphere of investing. And even though there were some more complexities as far as what's required, environmental studies and all kinds of things like that, and topographical surveys, the actual purchasing of it and the financing was actually easier. This is what I want people to recognize is just start where you are with who you are and what you know and who you know and what you had to work with. I don't care if it's a duplex or a single family home or half of a home. That was my first purchase. I bought a home jointly with Socrates. I only owned half a home.
Yeah.
But it wasn't long before I was taking down these big properties, and it actually gets easier the bigger you grow. That's the thing I want everybody to remember is, listen to Brandon and what he's telling you. In fact, Brandon, if anybody wants to talk to you or communicate with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Oh man, I'd say the best is probably Instagram. You can find me at Brandon Thomas Official. I'd say that's the best way to shoot me a DM. I answer all DMs as long as they're appropriate.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just getting deleted. You ain't getting to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So Brandon Thomas Official, right?
Yes, sir.
On Instagram. Cool. Now, I know we're getting close to time, where we probably got a minute or two left, but anything you wanted to bring up that I didn't ask about, or anything you think would really help the listeners? I mean, people right now probably in their cars or on a lunch break, and they want to invest. We got a lot of people that want to invest, and they just can't see their way to that first step sometimes,
Yeah. You know what? I'll keep it as less words as possible. And that's just simply put in the offer. If there's a property that you want to see, put the offer in, make sure the numbers make sense. If it's a lowball offer, who cares? Put in the offer, because there's a good chance in this current market with the affordability the way it is that seller just may say yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. The old saying is, what have you got to lose? If the worst they can say is no, if you don't ask, the answer is automatically no. So you might as well ask. I mean, it's baseball, guys. It's baseball logic. You don't know which pitch you're going to hit. I mean, you want to hit them all, but nobody hits them all. Even the best batters, nobody ever bats, more than say 350, 400. The best of the players. Same thing in here. You're going to make offers. The majority of them are probably not going to get accepted. So just accept that fact. And each one is a learning opportunity for you. You're going to get yeses along the way. When you do, you will have learned a lot along the way of getting to that yes. So thanks for the words of wisdom, Brandon. That was nobody seems to bring that up, but it's one of the fundamental rules of success is you've got to ask the coach to put you in the game so you can swing the bat,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, well, listen, everybody listening here, if you could leave a review for the podcast, we certainly appreciate when you do that. It's part of the blood flow that allows the podcast business to keep going because you don't pay for it. It's sort of like a public service for us. And we appreciate you doing that when you do that. And if you don't mind when you're out there, go visit Brandon Thomas Official on Instagram. Okay. And before you leave the internet, go to globalinvestoragent.com, grab yourself an investor agent. And if you are an agent, click on the learn more button and check it out. See if this should be part of your real estate broker's model. And I think it should. I mean, for me, I can tell you statistically on my team, we average 4 transactions per investor client versus owner occupants. We average 1. Do the math on that. You're going to market no matter what for your clients. You might as well market to clients that pay you 4 times, right? So, but in any case, we will see you on the next Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. In the meantime, God bless you and your families.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cash Flow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.